Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We're Baltimore positive. We are positively into some madness of March, some spring training of March, some tampering of March and free agency of March, as well as some crab cakes of March. We're going to be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery. I have the Magic 8 Ball scratch offs. I'm hoping to get some Monopoly because I'm looking forward to a community chest. We have all sorts of things going on. We're going to be at Fadley's this week. There's a rumor Mark Viviano stopping by. I'm trying to get new delegate Sean Stinnett. It was my former intern. Man, my former intern chain grows. I got a delegate down at the State House who was a former intern. I got a former intern of mine who is running the entire empire of Jason Kelsey. I mean, that's right this side of Taylor Swift. I mean, just one. So we got like good lineage here, and it's because I was cut from such great stock at the Baltimore News American and Sports First. I met this guy and admired his work before I met him when I was working at the News American. He was the gunslinger from Dallas via Philadelphia to do Enterprise Sports 2 stories, and then became a columnist. He's been my friend for a long, long time. He was a reporter at Ravens.com. He writes books on horse racing, race, quarterbacks, iron horses, and bird tapes. He is John Eisenberg. He is our defending champion of all things historical in Baltimore. How are you, John? Happy day to you. I don't know. Is it baseball, football, basketball, jurisprudence? What season is it for you these days?
Well, it's no, I would say baseball season. It is baseball season. Excited to took a trip to spring training with my wife very briefly and soaked up a little sun, hit some tennis balls, watched an Oriole game, and life was not bad. So I would say that means it's baseball season.
Can I ask you this before we get into Justin Tucker and all the salacious and all, and everything we're going to talk? I don't even know what the hell we're going to talk about because you don't hand me the notes like some people. Um, you grew up in Dallas, correct?
Yes.
Your beautiful mother is, almost a centenarian, or I think that's the word, still alive and well. And you get down there. What was your pathway to baseball? Dude, I've known you a million years, and I've never asked you like, were you at Arlington Stadium when
Yeah.
the day it opened?
My pathway to baseball was minor league baseball in Dallas, Texas in the 1960s. My dad took me to a game at a little field near downtown Dallas, Burnett Field near the on the Trinity River.
What year is
Uh,
this, John?
64.
So this is right after Kennedy's assassination. Wow,
Oh
in
yeah.
your
Oh yeah.
hometown. How old
Well,
were you when Kennedy was assassinated?
seven. I was
How far
seven.
away from it were you when he was shot? 10 miles,
Five
12 miles,
miles.
5
5 miles.
miles.
And my
Woo!
grandfather,
Man, dude, we'll do a whole day on that. You and I
no,
should do an hour on the day of your life that day. Woo!
don't get me started. My grandfather was at the lunch where they were waiting for him and didn't make it. And he was seated at that lunch. So I got all sorts of connections.
You were in second grade in his schoolroom in November.
Yes, I think I was in first grade, 7 years old. The math doesn't add up. So I guess it was second grade. But yeah, I got all sorts of connections to that.
All
So
right, so
from being
you're
in
so
Dallas.
that Kennedy, Dallas. We all know the black and white tapes. That period, the Dallas. What the hell were they? What were they called?
There was a team, the Dallas Rangers, I think it was, and then there was the Dallas Fort Worth Spurs. They played in what became in Arlington. It was actually an Oriole minor league team at one point, and so he would take me, and my dad would take me out to Arlington, and we'd go to these minor league games, and he would sit
Who'd you
there
see
and
play? Did you see? I mean, you saw guys that then became what Orioles? I mean, I don't know. Did you see?
yeah, I don't recall seeing anyone famous. Orioles. It was Double A baseball, and I loved going and listen to the games on the radio. And I think some of them were recreations, and that they did. So this was in the late '60s, and then Major League Baseball showed up.
Well,
And
you were
when
playing little league ball in the '60s,
I played a ton of Little League
and then
ball.
watching Brooks Robinson in the '66 series and
Yeah,
Koufax, and that's your. I was born in '68. You were watching the World Series, Detroit and St. Louis. I was born
yeah,
that week.
totally.
Right?
I was into all that stuff, and I was actually an Oriole fan. I mean, they were good. They were on television, and so I played Stratomatic, the whole
Oh
thing. So
yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that my entree, it was totally legit and on brand.
I had Slim Jim Phantom of the Stray Cats on the show about 2 years ago. He was doing a hit for Stratomatic because he played it his whole life, and he's a Long Island, New Yorker, and loved the Mets, and of the age of playing, married Britt Eklund from the Man with the Golden Gun at one point in his life. So, I mean, I'm talking
Oh,
about a serious guy here. But Stratomatic, '60s baseball. I just want to give a plug to another author because I think. No offense to your books, which I've read two or three of them. My favorite all-time baseball book, um, Lords of the Realm. I have some books that are sort of seminal, but for me, Seasons in Hell by Mike
Mike
Shropshire
Shropshire. Yeah,
is the
it's a great
best
book.
baseball book I've ever read. And I have no connection to the 1971 Texas Rangers or Ted Williams or Whitey Herzog or the big boy Rico Cardi or Fergie Jenkins or any of them. But I grew up on those teams and the baseball cards when the Senators became the Rangers and the colorful tales of Billy Martin and just all of that. And like what you're telling me is you were a 15-year-old kid when that happened?
Yeah, I was there. I was in the stands for that, and actually, I know Mike Shropshire pretty well from those Texas press boxes.
Can you
Uh,
get him on my show?
I don't know. I've lost track of Mike a long time ago, but he's a great writer, and
I mean, if anybody wants to read a book other than John Eisenberg's books, which I
no,
would always
no,
put in
I
front
would
of mine,
recommend it. Seasons in Hell, absolutely an amazing baseball book. I would highly, highly recommend that book.
I just was so wildly entertained by that book in a way that I can't, and I've read a lot of baseball books or whatever. It's
Yeah,
just that book
it's
always
up
struck
there.
me. And there's a romance about having read that book 3 decades ago. I read that book in the mid 90s when it was written that you lived. So it's real. And I never realized all the time we've spent together, I never put two and two together of like, those Ranger the uniforms and the tin can that they played in down there and the heat and like all of
Yeah,
that and stealing the Senators. You stole the Senators, you
yeah,
dirty SOB.
yeah. $2.75 to sit in the left field bleachers, and the sun would go down if it was a night game, and it was hot. Yeah, you needed that sun to go down, but yeah,
Bob
that's
Short, right? Bob
Bob
Short.
Short. Absolutely, moved him.
Oh, Ned, I love having you on because you wind up talking about things. I never thought about talking about that with you, but I wanted to plug
Uh,
Shropshire's book, so I don't even know how
yeah,
to pronounce his name. You pronounce it the right way. If
Shropshire. Yeah.
Shropshire, if you're out there, Mike Shropshire, you are a effing genius, and I want to have you on the show. John, you've got bird tapes going on. We got baseball. Look, man, I could do Trump for 100. I could do, also Ravens, Justin Tucker, all of that. We're going to do all of that. But it is baseball season in your heart and mind. And I'm wearing my Curio orange here. And we got opening day. Luke and I are going up to Canada for the opener. The Orioles are going to get booed off the field. Geddy Lee might be there, I hope. I'll be there. And for your bird tapes and John Miller, the other John Miller, the author of the Earl Weaver book, who I know you've gotten to know and I've gotten to know through the Wall Street Journal, and I've had him on the show, and you're visiting with him this week. And folks may hear that on the other end of this at the Enoch Pratt Library. If you catch it on the front end, is my dad's birthday, March 5th, a very, very special day in my life.
Wednesday night. Yeah.
Wednesday night, yeah. So if you catch it or miss it, John's got a book, but John Miller has a book on Earl Weaver. You have the bird tapes, and I want to give you the oxygen to just sort of reset it because you've been on 5 times since you started this crazy concept, and we know some of the same people involved in trying to get these tapes and transcribed and using Otter, and I've tried to help you as much as I can because I have a whole bunch of tapes around here. It really is something. I have the rock and roll thing in my background with all these old interviews with David Bowie and these people. You have the Oriole history literally in a box and you're bringing it to life. And I'm excited that you're having a season two, man.
Yeah, what happened? Yeah, for those that didn't know, this is a Substack, publication or newsletter that I do. I wrote a history of the team, an oral history of the team, published it 25 years ago. From 33rd Street to Camden Yards. And to do that, I interviewed just, hundreds of people, and I got some of them down on tape. And it's all the Oriole legends: Brooks, Frank, Earl, Eddie, Cal. Over 40 of these guys on tape. And I did nothing with them for 20 years. And then they were sitting in a shoebox in my closet, and I decided, I need to bring these out so the public can hear them. So I've had them digitized. I've been posting them over the past year at birdtapes.substack.com, and it has been successful. I got a large community that's developed, and I've really had a lot of fun with that. I've also written a lot of history and sort of some new looks at old things, and so I've really enjoyed it. Well, what's happened inevitably, Nestor? I'm getting to the end of the tapes. I've sort of run out of these vintage interviews that I had. So my question was, okay, what do I do? Do I just abandon ship? And
I
I've
have a
built
whole bunch over here. Do you want some? I mean, I'm
now.
serious. If you want Rich Dower, Scott McGregor, Mike Flanagan, I have
Flanagan.
everybody. I have Brooks. I've a lot of Cal. But I have everything but Palmer. I have nothing. Palmer's never
I
spoken
had
to me.
Palmer. No, what I'm going to do is because I still had some interviews that I cut in the 90s in the clubhouse with the guys from the 90s, Mussina and Billy Ripken and on and on. Rafi Palmeiro pre-bust, and they weren't great because there was so much background noise. I interviewed them in the clubhouse. I didn't think it was, and there was music playing and everything. And so I decided, you know what, go back, talk to these guys. I'm going to cut a new round of interviews. I'm going to do new interviews with anybody I can find, historic interview, the history of the Oriole interviews. I've already started on this round. And, I'm going to be bringing, as a matter of fact, I just did 2.5 hours with John Miller about, all his experiences in Baltimore and his departure. That
Ooh,
will be coming. And so anybody that sort of tinkles my curiosity a little bit, I'm going to do. I did a voice that I haven't heard that much talking about the Orioles, Fred Lynn, in the 80s. I got him. I've done Greg Olson. It's going to be a long list. I'm going to start posting. It's Orioles history still, but I'm going to talk to new people and find out. I'm going to talk to some beat writers and talk about their experiences. Richard Justice, my old buddy at the Sun and from Texas and everything, who went with the Orioles to Japan in 1984. There's just a million stories, and I'm just going to embark on a new journey with it a little bit and keep writing the stuff I've been writing. And I have pretty good feeling there'll be a nice reception.
I'm gonna give you a new nickname, Mister Fort Worth Spurs guy. You're now going to be the king of birds for
King
me.
of
As I have a
birds.
bird on my shirt, you're the king of birds. You're the
Oh,
keeper of the birds. Is what
keeper, not the
I'm gonna.
king,
What was a bird keeper? You're the bird keeper.
the
I
bird
had
keeper.
bird keeper. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm working on. We're
Okay.
whiteboarding. We're whiteboarding. John Eisenberg is here. I've been whiteboarding with him since 1986. When I used to sniff around him up in the press box at Memorial Stadium. And how do I get a job at the Sun? I want to cover baseball like you. All these years later, he is still covering baseball, and you know what, man? You worked for the Ravens and were involved in that. I think you might even have a Super Bowl ring for all I know.
I do.
And you did all of that, the columnist and the Sun and all that. You did horse racing books. I know you have other passions, but I think every time I ever think about you or know you, part of knowing you and your son and your family a little bit is that like you're really kind of a baseball first cat. Like, you know what I
Yep.
mean? Especially as you get a little, this side of 60, as you are, baseball still speaks to you in some way,
It does.
that it's
You're right.
drawn you. And the Orioles being good again is really, I think, gotten a little bit of fire under your flame a little bit. It would be different if they were still losing 110 games and Angelos was in his prime.
Absolutely. I will fully admit that publicly. I'm not sure I'd be doing this if that were the case, if the rebuild was going on with no end in sight. There's definitely an appetite for the Orioles now more than there was, and especially new ownership is great. I think it just sort of cleanses everything. It just changes people's perspectives on it. If anyone was on the fence, and I like that. Yeah, it's great. There's nothing better than having, young players, promising players. Yeah, they haven't delivered in the playoffs yet, but it's far more interesting than it was and promising. So, now the issue is they have to get good at being good is what the Orioles have to do now, which is a whole nother challenge from being really bad for a long time. Now they have to got new ownership. They have to be good, have to learn how to be good at this. And so there's a learning curve there too. And I think we're watching it. But it does make for a lot more fun. And so that is why I'm doing this. And you're correct. I mean, somewhere deep inside, I don't know that I was a baseball first guy. I mean, I loved it all the way along, but I got here in 1984. The Colts were gone. There was no football team in town. And every day when I rolled out of bed, especially when I got a column at the Sun, it was like, what could I possibly write about that would attract more eyeballs other than something about the Orioles, as bad as they were? And it's hard to take people back to that era when there was only one team in town. But that's sort of where I was for a long time, and it put something inside me. It was a lot of fun. It was great. It was just, and it wasn't the best years for the Orioles, but being around them and being at Memorial Stadium and traveling with the team a fair amount, I made good friends, wrote some interesting stuff, and it definitely set something inside me. Those were fun years when there was nothing else going on here, and I think I reflexively go back to it now and then, and it's just fun for me to write.
As I can see your Raven credential hanging on the wall behind you, I can literally see it. Um, the football thing, and it's so hard for young people here, especially the flippant jerks on the internet, the under the age of 40. No offense, kids. But there is a difference in that period of time where I was in the building with you. You were a grown up. I was a kid, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. Good baseball, awful baseball, terrible baseball, Camden Yards, fear of losing the baseball team, guy from DC owned, crazy owners with Eli Jacobs, all of things that happened, and Fred Lynn and Don Ossie and Lee Lacy, and just 0 and 21, Bill Ripken with the bat, just everything that happened to get Camden Yards built. Even in that moment when Camden Yards was built and the city got vibrant again around baseball and Cal Ripken and before Angelos bought it in that period of time, was there ever a minute where you believed that Baltimore was going to get a football team again?
Boy, I really lived that. I mean, that whole ups and downs, and yeah, there were minutes. I was in at the meeting in Chicago.
Rosemont?
Yeah, where Jacksonville and Carolina got the teams in Baltimore. I was standing next to Schaefer. I was standing next to Schaefer, William Donald Schaefer, who was there, hoping for triumph, and with the notion, not knowing how the NFL worked, that having the best deal on the table didn't necessarily matter. The NFL was going to do what it wanted to do. So yeah, I was there and wrote a rip job, of course, of the NFL. And I do believe I wrote that day. If I go back and look, okay, we got kneecapped, so now we got to go kneecap somebody.
It was
You
a
know,
build a museum press conference.
no, that was a different one with Paul Tagliabue. This
Oh, okay.
was this was the day that
This was
Baltimore.
Jacksonville got the second team.
Jacksonville, yeah, got second team. Baltimore was not back. And, you had to think, okay, well, is this going to happen? That was a day where you felt, and that was what, 3 years before Art Modell, 2 years maybe, or three
Yeah, it
years.
was 93,
Yeah.
94. Yep.
So yeah,
I
that was
was
the
at
time.
Bo Hager's with a bottle of champagne, literally ready to. It was 6, 7 o'clock in the afternoon. It was late in the day, and it was like waiting for the plume of smoke. And you were there, and I mean, there was no thought that there was going to be a team here, which is what makes the baseball team so, I think, special to people our age
Yes.
who, don't just pine away about, Cal and Eddie or whatever in 1983 or even 1992 and 3 and 4 and 5 and saying, how good could baseball be here? It can be really, really good if it's well done. And it hasn't been well done in so long that, and to your point and my point in our lifetime, it was only well done for 5 minutes anyway. When the cake got baked to get Camden Yards together, it never has really been anywhere near that vibrant before or after or since. And it's hard to imagine that, especially with DC having a team.
Yeah, that was definitely a turning point. Yeah, what was great about those years was even if the team was bad at 0 and 21, even at 0 21, it mattered. As a writer, and you're writing stuff, and this is of course the glory days of newspapers where, people actually read it. And if you wrote something, people read it, and if you wrote about baseball, people read it. They cared. The team was gone. There was a civic sort of like, God, we lost, we gotta hold on to this. And it raised some fears, irrational fears. I think the fear of moving to Washington with Edward Bennett Williams were mostly irrational. And that's not that he didn't consider it, but I think once he got up here and figured out and saw this mentality that he wasn't going to move the team. But
And also saw the mentality that they could get a state house to build and erect
yes,
this incredible stadium downtown that Stedman wanted in Port Covington. There was
yeah,
all, I mean, it just was a massive civic debate, everything about the Orioles and making it great and making it ours and ours and civic and ours. And, for all the bankers that got involved, just all the civic leaders that made it feel like a thing that was worth all of our time and our hearts and our money.
yeah,
And I know they're trying to recapture that. And you're the bird keeper of the flame with the bird tapes. John Eisenberg is here if you're tuning in on radio. But we're at that point now where like, can it be that again? I don't know. I mean, there's a whole new Katie Griggs, Mark Fine, Don Kovacs, all these new people coming in. The television network, the streaming, the team's going to be good, I think, right? And
yeah, definitely.
relevant.
Things are changing. Things are changing in fundamental ways. They've already changed in fundamental ways. So we'll see what happens. It's just a lot easier to invest in. And yeah, if it can be, it's never going to be like that. I mean, the world has changed and it's different. The way people consume things and the way people follow teams, everything has changed. So, but still draw. I just put up at the Bird Tapes an interview this week with Joe Foss, who was Angelos's right-hand man. And at the beginning of the interview, and I interviewed him because Angelos wouldn't talk to me for the book, and I didn't want to put the book out that I wrote without the ownership's point of view because so many people had ripped him. And so Joe stepped in and did that. And then Angelos did talk to me for the book. It's like the only time he ever talked to me. But what was interesting about Joe was right at the beginning of the interview, and this is the summer of 2000. He says, "Yeah, we're going to draw 3.4 million this year," and I'm like, "Whoa!" To people, 3.4 million at Camden Yards is a very high threshold, and I don't know if we're getting back there
And
again.
none of them were Yankees or Red Sox
Right?
fans.
It's
That's the crazy
incredible.
part.
3.4 million. So I know they took them years to get even back to 2 million, but they're headed in the right direction, and who knows? So if you put a winning team on the field here, you'll have some pretty good crowds.
Well, I mean, I know my time with you is relatively short, and I didn't want to not bring up the Justin Tucker thing, and certainly your time of employment with the Ravens, that you've always portrayed as being like a great place to work, and you wrote what you wrote, and you were there for when you were there for, and you're happy you're not there, but you were happy you were there. Not to paraphrase, but this Tucker thing, as it hits the streets, and as I get out doing accelerant events in the morning and cocktail parties and the Addies, this week where I get dressed up and do my hair nice and like all that and get out and talk to people like you and people in the media just in a general sense. Where are you on the Tucker thing? Because you know that guy. You've traveled on airplanes with him for a number of years. Texas thing going on, like you know him. I know him. This thing happens. The Royal Farms chicken thing, the whole deal. You're out of it, as you would say. You're not reporting on it, but you're a reporter, and his first inclination was to dirt the reporters, the banner, yellow journalism, tabloid, like all of this stuff. And meanwhile, I've had Julie Sharper on, who's done the work that you and I have fed our families with all of our lives, in telling the truth and sourcing the truth and who, what, why, when, and how. And there have been two press releases on their side. There's an NFL investigation, which is always it's its own punchline at this point. If the NFL is the one investigating this, it's from 10 years ago. It's all really bizarre in how the reporting came together with Justin Fenton. You're a reporter. I know you're going to defend reporters because it's what we do. But I had Julie on, and the story of how they found the six people as reporters on a massage message board, and then the pouring in came on the other end of the 10 women, and there have been other women they've identified who don't want to speak. That was reported by me and Julie on the show this week. Uh, I'm There's a journalism part of this that is after Ray Rice, who the Ravens are. The owner runs and hides. They've got this reputation for getting guys on the field that are special that need to be there, even if they punch their wives in elevators and glass elevators on video and then lie about it and have her lie. Like eh, that all really happened. And I know you were there at that point. All of that. And then this Tucker thing that they want to run from. He's a kicker. He's not going to kick anymore here. I'm of that. I am just wondering, and I'm going to be writing a Dear Roger Goodell letter soon, just basically saying, what kind of Animal House are you sanctioning out there where Ray Rice happens, where they bully and intimidate career reporters and throw me out of the building? And then the minute that the Tucker thing happens, they try to dirty up the Baltimore Banner and good reporting and journalism, not to mention these women who have serious allegations, serious and concerning allegations. Um, I watch this and I go back to the romanticism of getting a team, wanting a team, Governor Schaefer, all the good things the Ravens have done in this community, including helping you feed your family and me feed my family. I'm glad they're here. I'm better with all that. But I do wonder what I don't support it anymore, John. They threw me out. I bought PS. I mean, my story's well worn. It's stuff like this that, like, if I knew about it and took it to them, they would have just said, "Well, we don't have choir boys here," because that's what they always said to me.
Yeah.
When players showed up drunk at my shows, when guys showed up with madams representing them, demanding $2,500 in cash from me inside a restaurant where there clearly was no business transaction take. I mean, I had horrible things done to me before they threw me out. And when I took it to them, there wasn't a grown up around there that could solve my problem or make it better other than just to throw me out. And that I'm going to be writing a letter to Mr. Goodell, but I'm a guy sitting here staring at all my 1971 NFL belt buckles and having spent a life 27 Super Bowls, like all of that. We've gone where, I reported truths, uncomfortable truths. So did you about Peter Angelos. We all had to report uncomfortable truths about Peter Angelos because it was a friggin' mess. And people like Schmuck and Rosenthal knew stuff they couldn't report because it was just kind of tawdry. And they would tell me about it. And like there's legal bounds, there's all of that. But I do wonder what they're sanctioning out in Owings Mills right now. And is there a red line or a button somewhere to say what's unacceptable? Bullying and intimidating lifelong reporters who own FCC licenses, allowing kickers to get away with whatever if they knew about it, the punching the running back thing, like just and then people reach to me and tell me other things community wide, where they are, where the Wembley knee, all of these political things that happen. Um, they're making a boatload of money, but the accountability part has just dried up, and it makes me sad because I invested a lot of my life in it.
Yeah. Well, I was there. I was in the building for the Ray Rice stuff, which is going on 10 years ago, right? 9, 10 years ago. And I don't know how, somehow I survived that, working inside the walls there and writing stuff that certainly was not laudatory. Writing sort of negatively about their handling of it. This is why they had brought me in, was just to comment on what was going on. And, somehow, they let me do that. And which I do applaud them for, because really, writing opinion in that era about that subject, I should have lost my job, and I was not positive about their handling of it. But yet it made it into print, and I applaud them for that.
See, my wife was fighting for her life when all this went on, so I wasn't
Yeah.
like around, right? And
Yeah.
all it was used against me by Steele when he threw me out that I wasn't around enough. Well, my wife spent 155 nights in the hospital fighting for her life. So when the ish hit the fan literally a week and a half before her second cancer. Like
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
like she got cancer week 3, Pittsburgh week. She went into the hole and almost died the next 8 weeks. So I wasn't doing anything and that was 3 months after the press conference with the phone. I wasn't a part of that. When Bisciotti showed up without socks up on the stage and all pissed off and, you know, wondering why he was there, looked a little bewildered about what he would speak about. And I think it ended everything for the meet with him on that day. That was the end for him. He never was normal again after that. He was traumatized by that. It changed everything about the franchise, but you were around it. I wasn't, you know. So what do you make of it 10 years later?
Well, first off, I would never, I would never claim to know Justin Tucker at all. And that is the truth on, someone in the media, even someone in the building. I've never had intense one-on-ones with him. Yeah, I've had conversation with him. I've been on a plane with him. I don't know him, and that is the total truth of, what I look at this situation is I've been doing this too long. Okay. This is not this is not fallen athlete number one, okay, in my story. This is an archetype of a story that I have seen before, that I have seen a lot. And that's how, and nothing surprises me. So I don't know, Justin. I do, I have faith in the reporting. I have faith in the reporting. You are correct to say, I'm a lifelong reporter. These people that did this work, they're good at what they do. And, they didn't just pull it out of thin air. And, very honestly, Nestor, we're living in a time, in this country where it's easy just to say, I don't believe anything the media says, blah, 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 blah. And that's fine. And, if that's the path you choose to go down, that's fine. Good for you. Let me tell you, there's another path to go down, and that is people who are professionals that have done the work and come up with stuff, uncomfortable truths. You know, I believe them. And so, because they wouldn't just pull it out of thin air. So we're going to have a situation here where that's how I feel it's going to come to. This isn't going to be debunked. This isn't going to be, oh, this never happened. You can put out press releases and do whatever you want, but it would really surprise me if they just say, "Oh, this is just go away. Let's put a hose to it and wash it out into the street." Never happened. That's not going to happen. Okay,
Well, they
so
all would like that though, right?
yeah, yeah, but it's just not going to happen. So the question is, I mean, there's far too much corroboration and far too many people, and there's not going to be a rush to judgment. There's also, from the perspective of his career, I don't know that there's any criminal activity. I mean, there may be an investigation or a suspension, whatever. He will live to see the other side of this. And so the question becomes, as an athlete, where the Ravens will have to make the decision at that point. They don't have to investigate anything. They're going to let the NFL do it. And so, let those findings live.
And you know
And
what I would say about that is if they found anything really, really heinous, they'd hide it.
yeah, yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
that's the truth. That's
yeah,
that's the kind of investigation it is. The kind of
yeah,
investigation it is that if it led back to Bisciotti knew about it, Harbaugh knew about it, DeCosta, they all did. They moved massage in house. Everybody knew. Like, if that's the truth, well, they would never. That will never come out, ever. So to say there's an NFL investigation, we've seen that before. So it's a fraudulent investigation. It's a PR job of an investigation. And I'm with you. If they find anything horrible, they'll do something horrible to Tucker. But if he can kick 54 yarders with the game on the line in Denver, he'll get a job. He'll kick again in the league. I don't think there's any
yeah,
doubt about that. And he'll
yeah,
never be proven guilty. And to your point, it'll never be debunked. So they're all going to have to live with whatever they do. But for
yeah.
me, the Ravens, the question is, what are you sanctioning out there? That's going to be my greater question. What kind of organization do you want to be? Because I know the kind of organization you become.
Yeah, well, that's tough stuff, and go with it, and I don't know where it will go. I do think someone new will be kicking for this team, and that's it. And I tend to look at it more. It's too many years and too many newsrooms. I look at it from the journalists, the journalism, and where the story and the reporting that went into it, and what that is sort of that is my first sort of priority. And so when I see that and I see the work went into that, and the people who did the work. I tend to believe it, and so really that's where we are. Is and as you said, the people online, because I've seen a lot of it. Of oh, I don't believe a word of it, and all that. Well, my attitude on that is you be you, go right ahead. But I don't know that in the end you're going to like how things turn out.
John Eisenberg is here. He is there with the bird tapes. He is the bird keeper. I have deemed you that. Your Delta Tau Chi name is Bird Keeper. So there you go. I've just made it official as Dean Wormer here.
Okay.
I'll be writing a letter to the Dean Wormer, the NFL, and Roger Goodell at some point about this Justin Tucker fiasco scandal, whatever we're going to call it at this point. But they're going to play football. They're going to play baseball. Opening day in Toronto, John. We're going to have a little American patriotism probably going on at that point. And then opening day here against the Red Sox. I'm looking forward to a baseball season, and I can't wait to hear you talk to Mike Boddicker and Gary Renicky. If you can find Lowenstein, you become my new best friend. If you get
Well,
Brother
I'm
Lowe.
endeavoring. Unfortunately, what I'm hearing is maybe he's not in the best of health,
Oh,
which
no.
may not the worst. I am hearing this. I will tell you, you are person number about 927 that has said to me, "Can you get Lowenstein?" Because he was not in my first round of bird tapes. I'm really trying to get it. So, if it can be done, I will do it. If it can be done at all.
And the
So,
other thing I need from you, other than Shropshire, is Fred Lynn. Fred Lynn is at the top of my bucket list for getting him on my show at some point this year because he was my, he's my favorite. He was one of my dudes. So, and I've only met
Fred,
him once, but I'm a fanboy of Freddie Lynn.
he's a great
19
guy.
Red Sox. I know he is, man. That's why I got to have him on. So I want to talk some SoCal with him. All right, John Eisenberg. We've talked Dallas. We've talked Baltimore. We talked baseball. We talked football, and a little bit of politics. Go check his work out. He is Bird Tapes. You can find him out on social media. Find him out on Substack. Find him out everywhere. Did I get it all right?
Yep. Birdtapes.substack.com.
All right. And don't forget, he writes a lot of books too, and they make perfect gifts for the holidays.
That
I
is
am
right.
Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking. Baltimore positive.